My spirituality was embedded in the reality of the world that I live in, because I certainly did respect the sunrise and the sunset. I took lots of pictures and traveled places looking at needle rocks and exclaimed about, the birth of our kids. And what we have is so complex and so stimulating and so interesting. Could not have been a device of man. It had to be a spiritual presence. So I knew that, and I know that, but I wasn't expressing that. It wasn't a matter of importance, really, to me. I just was part of that world and very grateful. So I'm a Wenatchee boy going back to the time I was 4 years old, and have always had this remarkable place for home. It was an annual trek to California that I made, hoping to see movie stars and shining lights. And I'll be darned, Judy and two of her girlfriends were camped in the same state park. If there ever was a lightning strike in my life, perhaps that was it, because I was smitten, you might say, with that blonde girl camped next to us. One thing led to another, and soon we had to part, because she was going to be a student at San Diego State, and I was headed back to Pullman. Gosh, we had huge long-distance telephone bills. Both her parents and my parents were happy to say, why don't you two get married, and so we don't have to pay these phone bills anymore. Move to Wenatchee and start our professional lives and our family.
We grew up in a loving home. My mom and dad were great parents. They were there for sporting events, supportive in school. It was great. Dad was involved in our lives. We were expected to work on the farm, and I'm proud of the way we were raised.
Growing up with two just very loving parents that didn't miss a game, didn't miss a practice. I mean, they were there at everything. And I had a brother who was there. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. He was, when mom and dad weren't there, which my parents worked, Tim was always there. And then when he went off to Eastern, that sucked. He was like my best friend left. But I followed him out there. Got to play ball with my brother. I'd say that probably the most memorable moments in my life growing up were being able to be on the same practice field as my brother, be on the same side of the ball as my brother, be on the same down.
Chris idolized his older brother and wanted to be involved with Tim and to be respected and included with Tim and his life. As you can imagine, they had quite a locker room communion, with each other, with themselves, and of course all of their teammates. Tim graduated 3 years before Chris did, and so Chris went on and played on his own without his brother for 2 years.
Times were good. Met Becky, my wife, at Eastern, and we're married as soon as we graduated. My dad had 60 acres of orchard in East Wenatchee, and both my brother and I grew up working on the farm, and went away to school swearing I was never going to be a farmer, that it was way too hard to work. And at school, I don't know if it's maturity or what, but I just felt it was in my blood. I missed it for some reason and wanted to come home and farm. Had a talk with my dad about farming, and he said, our farm probably doesn't generate enough money for you and me, so you need to go get a job. And so I got a job as a tree fruit consultant. Becky and I bought our own farm next to my dad's farm. Had always just assumed that we were going to merge the two at some point, and I was going to farm them. I think that was a narrative that my dad and I had talked about our whole lives, and I was into it. I loved it, dreamed about it. It was my plan for sure.
Chris missed his brother's presence and leadership, because Tim and Becky were married and they moved off and started their life. And Chris was having quite quite a collegiate career as a football player, recognized as a many-time All-American. I think Chris got addicted to football and struggled with that addiction. At the time football was over, you know, you play a big game on Saturday and Sunday you hang up your uniform and it's done.
December 13th, 1997 was our last football game at Eastern when I played. And I remember just this huge, like almost sinking feeling. And I remember looking around at the other seniors that were there in the locker room with me, and they all looked the same. That lost look of, what am I gonna do now? And I remember just feeling absolutely lost, absolutely lonely, thinking nobody would understand what it is I'm going through. Like my problems are so significant that not a single person would understand. And so I just played the game, you know, put on the mask, everything's fine. 2 years later, well, married, 1999, divorced, 2001. And I don't blame her at all. My current wife and I went around all things backwards. First, we got pregnant. Then we decided to build a house. Then we moved in together. Then we had a child. Then we decided to get married.
I think for a combination of reasons and purposes, Tim began to feel in conflict with Chris because of things that he, you know, that both of them said and thought and did over a period of time since the football days were over.
Where he and I began to get a little bit sideways was I felt like maybe he was taking advantage of my mom and dad because of some of the problems he was having in his own life. And I didn't agree with it, and I, you know, he and I got to where we really didn't talk because there was so much distrust between he and I, harsh words spoken.
The pride in me pushed my brother away more. I wasn't the son that I wanted to be. Wasn't the brother that I wanted to be. I just didn't want him to know it.
My dad decided he wanted to sell the farm, and he sold some of it to me, but he sold the part that I wanted to somebody else. I was angry at him for that. I was angry for him, what I felt like was patience and love to my brother in his situation that I didn't feel like my brother at the time deserved. I wanted my family farm, and I didn't get it, and it pissed me off. I wanted my brother to treat my mom and dad better, and I wasn't getting it, and it was pissing me off. And then I'd come home and, you know, the dryer's broken, or the dog has to go to the vet, or, you know, and it just felt like everything I was doing wasn't working.
Judy and I had a long and enduring relationship, 50 years together, and the key part of that deal was our boys and their time with us, and both Judy and I would want to be talking about our boys.
So then my wife goes, hey, I want to start going to church. If you don't want to go, don't go. I was like, well, I'm in the middle of harvest. I can't leave in harvest.
Some friends asked us to come to a barbecue at some friend's house. Becky said, let's go. I said, okay, yeah, fine. Another week went by, and I'm in the middle of apple harvest, and again, I'm at this slow boil in my life where everything aggravates me, and I'm just frustrated all the time. And my wife says, hey, we're gonna go back to McPherson's tonight. And I said, well, what for? Are they barbecuing again? And she said, no, it's a small group. It's a Bible study for Grace City Church. And you know, Josh is the pastor of Grace City Church. This is a great opportunity. We should go. My exact words were, you've got to be effing kidding me. You want me to go sit and listen to a pastor? You know, that's like the last thing in the world I need. And she said, get in the car, you're going.
Thanksgiving rolls around and my wife looks at me and says, hey, harvest is done. You want to go to church? You don't have any more excuses. So I went to church, and that was the seed. My wife being patient.
It was the exact opposite of what I thought it was going to be. The honesty and the fraternity, people that were struggling just like me, people that had experiences and were honestly and earnestly interested in what I was going through. Christmas time rolled around, and then Josh gave out gifts, and the gift that he gave me was the book, The Prodigal God. At the time, I'm still, I don't know about parables or Luke or anything. It's just, okay, I'll read this, And it was the first time that it hit me that Jesus had described a story that was the exact situation I was in. The father is a farmer and he owns land and he's got 2 sons, and the younger son went away and lived kind of a party life and did some things that people didn't approve of, and he came home broken and needing his father's love. And the older son stayed home and worked on the farm and did it with the intent of ownership and having a stake in the farm. And when the younger brother came home broken, he went to his father gave him love, and the older brother was jealous of that. It hit me like a ton of bricks that's you, dude. That's you.
And I remember just thinking to myself, if my wife would change, I would change. My kids would change, I would change. My dad would change, I would change. Tim would change, I would change. I need everybody else to change. And at that time, Jesus was speaking into my heart. And I just wouldn't listen.
I realized how disdainful I was and how full of sin and anger and hate that I was, and that anger and hate was my fault. And there was this urgency that overcame me. It was like, I got to fix this right now. I wanted to put things right with my dad first. And I honest to God, didn't know how I was going to do it. His orchard and my orchard are about a mile apart. There's a wind machine right in the middle, and I start walking into the orchard and I get to the wind machine. And I didn't want to face him without knowing what I was going to say. And I felt so guilty and so bad about my situation that I just honestly didn't know what to do. And I just bow my head and I start praying that God would help me find the words to say to my dad so that he would forgive my sin. I finished my prayer and I looked up, and my dad was standing right there.
Tim came and talked to me and apologized and said he was going to go seek out his brother, that he didn't think he had been honest or fair with his brother, and he wanted to get back squared up. And he did, artfully, I'd say. Manfully and artfully put it behind him. That was a good thing.
Just such an immense relief, and just what an amazing event, completely unplanned. I don't remember the drive over there. I don't remember the drive when I left. But I know that I looked at my watch and I thought, I need to go find my brother.
The good things about my life were because of my family and because of my brother. And here he is apologizing to me. You go through a moment like that when Jesus starts speaking conviction into your heart because someone you love so much comes and shows you just how beautiful Jesus is.
There was enough hard feelings, there was enough hardship in our past that I don't think that it would have been possible without God's influence in our life. And little did I know, at the very same exact moment in time, my brother was on his own walk with Christ and finding Jesus all on himself at a different church, different circumstances. We were on the same parallel path coming together to heal our family.
The boys separately and independently, I think, were on a beginning spiritual path. A bit of a surprise to me, quite frankly, because we hadn't been a church-going family or really had much to do with spiritual recognition whatsoever. Tim called one day and he said, Dad, Becky and I have been going to church at Grace City and we'd like you to go with us. And I forget what the topic of the sermon was that day, but I probably said something to my wife like, that was pretty damn good. Likely as what my terminology would have been. And so I went continuously with Judy, and then since she's passed away,
I get a text from my dad. Mom was going to the ER. She'd had a heart attack. My dad's there. Brother's there already. And Mom's not conscious. And people just started coming out of nowhere. It's coming in to give us prayer and love. And I was just praying to God, just saying, show me. That's all I need. All I need for you is just to show me who you are. Be visible. And I just remember all these people surrounding us. And he said to me, do you see now? Do you see me now? That sealed the deal right there.
My mom, on the event of her death, got to see our family healed. And I'll be forever grateful for that. No doubt about it.
The celebration of my wife's life put the three of us together prayerfully over our kitchen table. And those were powerful moments to get back together with the boys.
Josh called me one day out of the blue and he said, have you ever thought about being baptized? And I thought, me? Seriously? Me baptized? Nah, I think that'd be cool, but do you think I'm ready? I mean, I'm a newly minted Christian, you know. I'm 46 years old and this is all brand new to me, and I couldn't recite one verse out of the Bible, and you're talking to, like, you wanna baptize me? And he talked about how Christianity isn't based on deeds. It's not based on how many years you've been a Christian or how many notches in your Christianity belt you have. It's more about your relationship with God and Jesus. My thought of Jesus before I had studied and learned and was even interested in Christ was kind of a skinny little weakling type mindset of what Jesus was, and I never really felt like I was drawn to that. I see him now as big, strong, manly man, hairy chest, you know, just iron integrity, will go to the ends of the earth at all costs to not break it. And he does it to my benefit, and that he's the only one that can carry that kind of weight. Not because of his vanity, Not because he needs it, not because he needs me, but because he does it because he's got iron integrity that can't be broken. And he does it for me because he loves me. And he loves my kids, and he loves my dad, and he loves our family enough that even in our brokenness, he said, you know what, you're worth it to me.
Now I'm just following Jesus. Once he's at the throne, man, everything's a gift. My marriage is completely changed, and that's all Jesus. My relationship with my kids have all changed, and that's all Jesus. Relationship is the best currency. It never loses value.
My list of important words were respect, wisdom, skill, honesty, sincerity, words like that. And when I would go and listen to Josh preach a sermon, his several most important words were Jesus, 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 and Jesus. And then he got into respect and more worldly words that I was more accustomed to using. It's taken me a while to subordinate the word respect to the word Jesus, but I think I'm getting there now, because I can see how respect evolves from a worship of Jesus. That's important to me now. I've heard people tell their stories of coming to Christ, and oftentimes it's been related to some stupendous event in their life. For me, it's been like a slow dripping water, just accumulating, making a stream and then a river. It struck me that my life and my lifeblood and the lifeblood of my family is so dependent on the Columbia River that it would make good sense, number one, to recognize my faith by being baptized, and then furthermore to be in the cold water in the river.